Hi, it's Pip Mackay here, the creator of Matrix Therapies. And I wanted to speak today about why people don't like to take unsolicited advice. And I got this information from Sue Knight, who is an author of NLP books and was actually the very first NLP book that I ever wrote. And I went to a workshop of hers organised by the Australian Board of NLP, which was fantastic because it was great to meet her and listen to her speak. So basically, people don't like to take unsolicited advice because of the way it relates to the drama cycle. Now, the drama cycle was a little model that was created for people who were partners or family members of alcoholics. And it was created by Alcoholics Anonymous to assist those people who were supporting or in relationship with people who were alcoholics or recovering alcoholics. So the drama cycle basically has three parts. The first part is the role of victim. So that might be the role that somebody who is married to an alcoholic might find themselves in. So they're in the role of victim. And then there's the role of rescuer. So the victim might cycle into rescuer whilst they try and rescue the person who has a drinking problem. And then finally, there's the role of perpetrator. And that role is often what the alcoholic might think the person is perpetrating them, or an aggressor if they want to leave them or if they stand up for themselves. And so this is a cycle that people go through. And it's also a cycle that alcoholics go through as well. So they might be the perpetrator in that they might have hurt or yelled at their partner. Then they might becoming the victim when their partner wants to leave them, and then they might go into rescuer mode where their partner might be upset and they bring them flowers and so on and so forth. So this is a drama cycle, it's a model, but obviously it doesn't just relate to people who are alcoholics or partners of alcoholics. It's a really common, in fact it's the most common cycle that we find ourselves in with significant others, where there's a point in time where we want to rescue the person. There might be a point in time where we feel the victim of another person in our family or in relationship with, and there may be a time where we feel angry and blaming of them, where we're in the perpetrator role and they're with us. And basically the idea is that drama cycle just goes round and round, and you'll find yourself, if you're in the drama cycle, in each of those positions at some point within the relationship. So the only way to come out of the drama cycle is to create two positions. The first position is that of observer, where you're not involved in all the machinations of the drama cycle anymore, but you simply observe them, and you can observe what is really the behaviour that's going to help create new solutions and come out of this situation, and be able to observe your own behaviour and other people's behaviour in relationship to you. And the other position, which is an empowered position, one the observer, and the other is the creator, where you simply stop going round and round in this drama cycle and start to create your own life and get your own needs met without moving around in this codependent drama cycle. Okay, so what does all of this have to do with unsolicited advice? Well, the thing is that if you give advice to someone and they haven't asked you for it, and you haven't really asked permission to give it, you are simply putting that person into the victim role, because you are suggesting to them, you are presupposing that they cannot solve their own problems, or that they don't have the resources in order to gain their own solutions. And this puts them archetypally in the role of the victim, and you archetypally in the role of the rescuer. And the problem with that is that then if they reject your advice, then you may be putting them in the role of the perpetrator, and then you become the victim of their rejection. Or it might be that they accept your advice and then they see themselves as lesser than you, or they then have to rely on you and be codependent with you always to help them solve their problems. And so it's a real issue, if we're a coach, that we need to be aware of how advice can can put people into a victim role and be disempowering of them rather than empowering of them. And the presuppositions that we may be suggesting to the person when we give advice. So what can we do about this? Because we can find ourselves as a coach that we may be asked for advice, or there may be something that we feel is really important for us to say, which is sort of in the form of advice, but we don't want to disempower the person. Well, the most important thing is to pre-frame with permission. So to create a permission frame. So you say something like, look, I know you probably already thought about this, and I was wondering if it was all right if I say something or make a suggestion about this situation. Then if the person says, yes, that's fine, they've given you permission, and that has already put them in a position of power because they've now accepted that you can give them permission. So basically, they are in control of the fact that you are going to give them permission. And you can say something like, of course, you need to put this through your own intuition and your own ideas and think about this. Feel free to reject it if you like. Again, you put the person in a position of power. And that way, you can give advice without immediately presupposing that the person can't solve their own problems or presupposing that the person is in a position of victim. So that's a really great way. The other thing to do as well is to simply ask the person questions that might draw out their own solutions. So you might say something to them like, so rather than saying, have you ever thought of, and then giving them advice, without even asking them really, or suggesting that they probably already have. But you might just simply ask them questions. So what are some of the other approaches that you might have had in this situation? Or have you ever had this situation in the past and taken a different approach? What was that? Or you might, if you do want to give advice, you might say, would you mind from my experience if I shared something with you about this situation, which I found has worked with other clients. It may or may not work with you, but I have found it's been useful for other clients. Would it be okay if I share this with you? So again, that's another permission frame. So the two things that prevent people from being in the drama cycle around advice is to pre-frame a permission frame where you're asking them permission and they can say yes or no, or where you're asking them questions. And the most important thing is not to give advice before you have truly understood the person's situation and the context in which they're finding themselves and the context of the problem they are in. Because otherwise, remember that all meaning is context dependent, and if you give advice without really deeply understanding what the person's going through, asking them lots of questions about the situation, and getting them to empty out and to get a deeper understanding of what's going on for them, then you may simply be giving them the wrong advice. So that's it. That's the reason why people don't like to take advice, because unconsciously they feel that when they're getting advice, they've put themselves into the situation of victim, particularly if they have not given permission for the advice. They feel like you are presupposing that they cannot solve their own problems. And the whole point of coaching is to empower people to solve their own problems. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and I hope that's been useful for you.